want to jump into some of the factors that go into our model. In this case, this is retail sales. So this is current sales, the blue bars, or at least through the end of 22 for medium-duty Class 8 and trailers. And we've had strong sales of vehicles recently. As a reference there, we've put in the 10-year average. And if you're looking at, for instance, Class 8 and trailers, 22 came in about 9 to 10 percentage points higher than the 10-year average. So we've had strong retail sales. Those retail sales are feeding into our active operating populations, and that's helping to increase overall parts demand. This is the same chart for Canada retail sales. Not quite as strong in 22 as the US, but still up about 2.5 points or so over the 10-year average. So again, fairly strong sales in Canada, just not to the same degree as the US. So going from retail sales, and we talked about annual mortality factors and developing our operating populations. This is a historical look at operating populations for trailers, Class 8, 7, and 6, and that's the order they're going down. The main point of this is historically, if you're looking at this, so going back to 2005, growth has been pretty flat. A little bit of increase in Class 8 trailers over that time period, but generally slow growth in the total active operating populations. Medium-duty Class 7s kind of cancel out the growth of Class 6. Class 7s have been trending down over time. This is a little bit more detailed look currently where we are at in our operating populations. So this is the United States. On the left is our most current year, 2022. We've got about 2.1 million medium-duty Class 6 and 7s, a little over 3.6 million Class 8s, and over 4.8 million trailers. And the forecast out over the next 5 years is for continued growth. So we're seeing 7 to 8% growth in heavy-duty and trailers, somewhat flat, a little bit of growth there in medium-duty. And then again for Canada, a quick snapshot, there's about 187,000 medium duties in Canada, about 370,000 Class 8s, and a little over 570,000 trailers. Expecting more growth again in the operating populations, just not to the same degree as the US. So I mentioned using utilization from our surveys as an adjustment for our unit demand. This is our most recent utilization. It's actually showing you back to 2015. And in the orange box there, that is the 4-quarter average for 2022, coming in at close to 86%. This is for Class 6 through 8 powered vehicles. So 2022 was a strong year. If you compare that to the last 5 years of utilization, excluding the pandemic, it's about a percentage point higher than the last 5 years. So very strong utilization in 2022. The green bars to the right, the light green bars, that's our fleet forecasted utilization. So we asked the fleets what their forecast will be over the next couple of quarters. So this is Q1 and Q2. And you can see there it's a little bit volatile. They've got the Q1 utilization up to about 88%, and the Q2 then dropping down to 80%. We don't think it's going to be that volatile. We certainly look at it and appreciate the feedback we get from the fleets on their forecast. Our forecast there in the dark green bars on the far right, kind of continuing where we're at in 2022, dropping a little bit into the first half of this year. Here's the same chart, but for trailers. Very similar story. Trailers came in very high utilization at close to 90% for 2022. And very similar story here. The fleets have forecasted a little bit more volatility with the light green bars. We're thinking the utilization is going to drop a little bit, a couple of points, at least in the first half of the year, depending on how much softness there is in the economy. And then finally, we talked about price in our model. So I mentioned we use average retail prices to create the dollar demand for parts, but then we also have a price increase every year, depending on the feedback we're getting from our parts distributors. In this case, this is a historical look. If you look back from the history from 1990 through the start of 2020, the average price increase has been about 1.9%. That's the feedback from our distributor surveys. So pretty low pricing generally overall. And then coming out of the pandemic, we've certainly had a spike in prices. So far in 2022, our latest round of distributor surveys that came back, we have pricing at 10.2%. So a very big jump in 21 and 22 for pricing. Our forecast for 23 is at 3.5%. That may be a little optimistic or conservative, especially when we just heard some of the other panelists talking about they're seeing pricing maybe in the range of 4 to 6%. But that's our initial look at it. We think pricing is going to come down to how much we don't know, and we're certainly, we may adjust this throughout the year. This is our initial look at it. You look at the factors that are driving pricing in 2022, and you've got inflation, you've got price setters actually just raising prices because they could, you've got supply chain issues. How much all of those are going to continue remains to be seen. Okay, so where did we end up in 2022? And this is a look at, on the left-hand side of each chart is what we said a year ago, 12 months ago here at HD80. We forecasted 22 would be up 9.2%, and we kind of missed the mark there. We ended up the year at 17.7%. But what's really the big driver? What's the difference there? For the most part, it's price. Back in 22, we thought price would be in the 5% range, and as I just mentioned, from our latest round of distributors, it was twice that. So 5.5 percentage points added to that is price. We've had higher utilization than expected. That added to what we thought last year. And then there's some model adjustments that we do based on our component surveys. If there's changes in replacement timing, that can affect. But primarily the biggest difference there is price and utilization. Just as a comparison to what we do, so that was our DataMac forecast for the entire market. We also have what we call an aftermarket index. You probably have seen this in the past. We collect data from about 19 component suppliers. So it's not an apples to apples comparison to our forecast. This is for our market. This is just 19 companies supplying parts to the OE and the independent channel. So it doesn't represent the entire market, and it doesn't represent end user retail, but it is a pretty good approximation of what's happening. We think their total sales is about 8 to 10% of the market, so it gives you a different look at the aftermarket. In this case, through November, the aftermarket index for these 20 companies was up 14.6%. And we do collect the data by channel. You can see the difference there with the OE channel about twice that of the independent channel. We did ask for a little feedback from some of the component suppliers why the difference in the OE channel. A couple of the reasons they gave is that priority has been given to production, priority has been given to larger customers who typically are in the OE channel. One of the other reasons they said was that the independent channel has allowed more price increases last year than the OE channel. So just a couple of responses we got back regarding the difference. Here's the Canada market. What did we say last January for Canada? We thought Canada would be up a similar amount, about plus 8.6%. And where did it actually end up? At about 16%. So really the same kind of thing happening in Canada as the US. We use similar pricing in Canada, but Canada the pricing is coming in much stronger. And so most of it's based on price and utilization. On both of these charts, I have a little asterisk for the 2021. If you'll notice the difference in the two values, if you're wondering why that value changed. Sometimes we make some model updates in our forecast, whether it's adding components or pricing, so sometimes that affects the initial value there. And getting back to the aftermarket index as a comparison for Canada, this is where the index in Canada came in so far through November. This is year-to-date through November, so up about 7.3%. Okay, we do, as I talked about, a lot of surveys. One of our monthly surveys is called Data Pulse Plus. We're surveying fleets and distributors and dealers, asking them about their business. And then we have a distributor survey that goes out towards the end of the year. And we ask, what are the fleets and distributors' number one concerns going into the new year? So this is a quick historical snapshot of the last 2 years, where the major concerns were. Obviously coming out of the pandemic in 21, a lot of it was related to pandemic-related impacts and government regulations. Last year, the big issues, especially for the fleets, we're talking labor and price and regulations. Distributors were concerned about parts availability and labor and the economy. And then really what they're asking, or what we asked them for 2023, not a lot of difference. And I think we already heard that in terms of one of the other panels. The fleets are concerned about price, especially with relating to fuel prices. They're concerned about labor issues, whether they can keep drivers and technicians, and just the general economy in 2023. Distributors, very much the same. Parts availability is still a major concern, labor issues, and price. So from our monthly report, this is Data Pulse Plus. This is the last 4 years of year-to-date sales, just to give you a historical snapshot of our monthly survey. So coming out of the pandemic, part sales have been excellent the last couple of years, very strong, looking at double-digit growth. But I guess the real question is, how will this look coming into 2023? Will this start to trend down, or will we continue along that line there? This is a look of the different price feedback we got back and the price increases over the last 12 to 15 months. In general, it was a fairly, very small but rising trend over the last year or so. The positive thing is, in the last several months, it has started to trend down. So we hope that will continue. From the truck dealer's perspective, on the left, we're showing you, we started asking about price a little over a year ago, so we don't have a multi-year comparison here, but for truck dealers, their highest reported price increase was in May, and that was at about 12.8%. Currently, it's coming in at about 11, so there's a little bit of a drop-off. Part shortages on the right, we've asked about part shortages over the last 3 years. What percentage of our respondents have had part shortages? And certainly in 2021 and 2022 is a very high percentage. You can see some of the different categories they've listed on their surveys where parts shortages have happened, and I think it has kind of happened across the board overall. Same graphic for distributors. They peaked in terms of their survey responses for price in September at about 16%, and they're currently down at about 11.7%. So again, hopefully that drop in prices will continue. And the same look on the right for part shortages. Very high percent in 2021, 86% of our respondents for distributors were reporting part shortages. Positive here is that it's dropped off about 20 percentage points to about 65%. So again, hopefully that trend will continue. And then in our distributor surveys, we ask an open-ended question, how can manufacturers assist you in the coming year? And they can just write in their response. And so we aggregate the responses according to the largest percentage. The biggest percentage here is help with back orders, better parts availability, increasing stocking. That was the biggest trending answer there. And then followed by, at a smaller percentage, price, better training, communication. So those are some of the big factors that they're looking at in terms of help for 2023. Okay, what's our forecast for 23 and beyond? So this is the U.S. forecast. I showed you earlier where we ended 22 at plus 17.7%. Our forecast for 2023 is up 4%. So I talked also about our pricing that we used. We used about 3.5% pricing. So growth is pretty limited for what we're showing for 2023. We do forecast out over a 5-year period, assuming similar conditions in populations, assuming similar conditions in utilization and price beyond 2023, we drop back to a 2% level. That growth is at 4% for the compounded average over the forecast. You may be asking, well, what about if we have a recession? These numbers will certainly change if we fall into a recession. Utilization will get impacted, possibly annual miles. But this is where we're at right now with current conditions. And here's Canada. Similar, we went from 16% in 2022, and our forecast this year in Canada is up 2.2%. We have pricing in here right now at 3.5. We're still getting pricing back from our distributor surveys, so it's a little bit preliminary. But this is where we're at. So if you take out pricing, demand would be down slightly in Canada for 2023. There's a different mix of populations in Canada by class and location, and so they're affected a little bit differently. Plus, the retail sales and operating population growth has been a little bit slower than in the U.S. Finally, we're showing you here, sometimes we're asked, well, how much does the market really grow? And so we just said, let's just hold pricing constant at a certain point in time. So we went back, we just picked 2008, and we held prices constant, and we just ran our model with the normal population growth and all the other factors that we're using, but we held prices constant. You can see the growth with the orange bars there is at about 2.2% without price. So it's fairly slow growth industry, the aftermarket. With price, it's at about 4.7% per year. And that's actually bumped up because of the big pricing increases in 2021 and 2022. So with